welcome to the start of another weekly reading vlog. It is Sunday and it's been a pretty productive one overall. I've gotten a lot done. I did dishes, cleaned up the bedroom a little bit. I am almost finished with laundry. Gotten a ton of editing done, which is that was a big thing. That was something I really needed to work on. So I'm really happy for that. When it comes to reading stuff, so I have actually been in a little bit of a slump for like about the last week. Life has just been a little crazier than normal around here. And then also I finally put it together that like I always kind of hit a little bit of a life slump in springtime. Like March, April is usually whenever it comes in and just knocks me down. I don't know if it's like the transitionary period or what, but it always just kind of puts me in a weird mood. So because of that, I had multiple days last week where I just didn't touch a book at all and like did not want to. And everything I was currently in the middle of reading, just like I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to pick it up. I didn't want to force myself into reading these books. So I finally figured, you know what? I'm going to reread a romance book, but I'm going to make it a book where it will fulfill the prompt for my romance book club that I do in person. So that way I still feel like I'm being productive, like I'm getting something done, even though I'm rereading a book in order to, you know, put myself back into a better reading mindset. Is that super type A of me? Yes, it is. But that's just the kind of person I am. So I have ended up starting a reread of Truth or Beard by Penny Reid, which is the first in the Winston Brothers series, and I love this series on the whole. I listened to the audiobook of all of them 2 or 3 years ago now, I think, and ended up really falling in love with this family. The third is probably my all-time favorite, although I do really enjoy the second, fourth. You know, I can't even really say. I enjoy pretty much all of the books. I think the fifth book is really the only one that I didn't love. Starting a reread of the first book was actually a little dangerous because now I'm getting tempted to like continue a reread of the whole series. Now I own the physical copies. So what I've been doing is reading it physically and actually going through and annotating it. And I recently found a ton of like brand spanking new highlighters whenever I moved some stuff from my parents' house. And I was like, you know what? I'm not usually a highlighting person when it comes to annotating, but we're gonna try it out. It has been helping. Like I started this Friday night and Saturday morning, I immediately jumped into reading again. And it's been a hot second since I've done that. So it made me so happy. Truth or Beard is following Jessica and Dwayne. Dwayne is the fourth, wait, let me see. Jethro, Billy, Cletus, Ashley, and then the twins. Bo is tied for the fifth youngest in the family, and he is actually a twin. At the start of this book, he ends up running into Jessica, who is basically his childhood frenemy, who he has been in love with since they were teenagers, but she has always had feelings for his twin brother, Bo. Bo is more of the nice twin, and Dwayne's like the grump. He is the sourpuss. But a mix-up kind of throws these two together, and Dwayne officially shoots a shot and decides to showcase to Jessica that they are suited for each other, and he starts basically courting her. I love the fact that like it's kind of old school feeling, which is really funny. Like this isn't a historical, but rereading it, I guess I just did not realize the first time how old school Dwayne is. Like on their first date, he brings flowers to take to her mom. He wants to pay respects to her dad before taking her out, but like neither of them are there. It's just her obnoxious older brother. There's also a ongoing plotline in the series around the Winston boy's father, who is a head of a motorcycle gang that unfortunately causes a lot of drama for the family members throughout it. Though Jessica is definitely starting to warm up to the fact that Dwayne may have been the guy she always longed for instead of Bo, she is still very hesitant about getting into a relationship because she had this plan when she moved back to town that she is just going to pay off all of her student loans as quickly as possible so that she can start traveling and basically become a nomad. So she's very hesitant to try anything serious with Dwayne, but she can't deny the chemistry that they have, and they do have really good chemistry. The banter in this book is so much fun. I will say Penny Reid's comedy style has to work for you. If this book does kind of feel its age, in fact, there are a few things that I don't think age particularly well. The initial incident that brings these two together isn't great, I'll be honest. I wish it would have been reworked a little bit, but at the very least, like they do sort of clear the air. But Dwayne is just also so freaking gone for Jess, and I do love me a man falls first situation. He is like so determined. Let me find, there's this one great line where they've just kissed and he is like really trying to restrain himself, and he's like, I thought about it. I did, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted to marry this girl. And just, he is such a simp for her. I love it. I love it. And then it's also really fun rereading the series now because Reid ties so many little things in throughout the series that become important in later books. It's genuinely very impressive. So I'm actually going through and tabbing stuff that ties into other brothers' stories, and I'm actually having a lot of fun with that too. There's been one awkward situation, but to be fair, these characters don't know what I know at this point in time, so it's not awkward to them. So if all that gushing did not tell you that I am once again loving my read of this book, I'm really glad I decided to reread this. It's going so well. Apart from this, I was technically in the middle of reading A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. I'd mostly been listening to the audio of this. I was just at 52 pages, and this was the book where like I want to read it. I do, but because of the mood I was in and how the story was going, like I had no drive to pick it up. And that made me nervous because I don't want my sour mood to affect my enjoyment of the story. So instead, I wasn't really sure what I was going to pick up audibly. And then it's like the Libby gods knew I needed something because they came in and told me that my hold for The Butcher by Jennifer Hillier came in. And this is a like thriller horror story that I totally forgot I put on hold. This is for another video that'll be coming out probably a ways down the line, honestly. I had put it on hold and forgotten about it because it wasn't an urgent one. This alternates perspectives between multiple different people who are tied to this case of a serial killer who is believed to have been found about 20 years ago. So we have the cop who investigated it and caught him. The suspect was never officially put on trial, I'll just say that. We have his grandson who has just recently moved into his house and is finding evidence relating to the case. And then we actually have his grandson's girlfriend who believes her mother was a victim of the butcher, but after the time when the police caught him. So she is actually in the process of writing a book to try and investigate the story and prove that this person who took the blame was not actually the perpetrator and find the one who's actually responsible for this. I am really enjoying it. The setup of it so far is already making me think of the Nothing Man, I think is what it was called, by Catherine Ryan Howard, which I very much enjoyed that because it reminds me of like a nonfiction or true crime book, especially the chapter through the girlfriend's perspective. I think her name is Sam, because she is an investigative journalist. Like it really does feel like a true crime podcast. Honestly, with how this book is setting up, like I don't want to dive into too many specifics. It's already like pretty heavy, but I will say this, like Hillier is coming at it from like a very police procedural angle. You're not actually, at least so far, watching and getting like full descriptions of all these horrific things happening. You're being told what's going on in these very scientific terms that kind of allow you to distance from it. I already got about an hour and a half into the audio while I was making dinners. Yeah, I'm really hoping I've managed to pull myself out of this slump, but we'll see. I need to officially finish out my laundry for the night, and then honestly, I think I am going to continue reading Truth or Beard.
Good morning, friends. Happy Monday. So I forgot to mention that I actually have my fantasy book club on Thursday. So that means I'm going over to my brother's tonight, which will be fun. But I did want to go ahead and talk to y'all because I've actually gotten a fair amount of reading done. I did continue reading into Truth or Beard last night. I read a little bit more of it this morning, and I'm just loving this series. I have unfortunately hit like the first conflict situation where like Jess has just officially told Dwayne that she's planning to leave. So they're back on hold, but of course, Dwayne's brothers are being like, you know, you have a chance at happiness for a temporary amount of time. You gotta take it. But then there's also some drama around the motorcycle gang element. And so we're working on that too. Just having fun. Literally, anytime I'm reading it, it just brings a smile to my face. And that's what I wanted. So I'm very happy that's how it's going. And then when it comes to The Butcher, I'm continuing to like this. I've been listening to the audiobook of it this morning while I got ready. I do have to say, like, I think this one is going so much better for me than the last Jennifer Hillier book I read. Things We Do in the Dark, I think is what it was called. I think the triple perspectives, and the way this story is unfolding is just like really, really engaging to me. And it's so interesting to see how one character in particular is changing the perspective you have, the perception Hillier gives you around this character at the beginning of the book versus, like, I'm nearing the halfway point now and it's changed, but I think it's really good character work, and the way it's a parallel to one of the other perspectives we're seeing, very solid writing. I'm very, very much enjoying it. I'm being as vague as possible on purpose because I think this is one of those books where you really should go into it with as little knowledge possible. Honestly, I think even reading just the summary on Goodreads is like a little too leading. You can very easily piece together. I'm liking this. Sam has made some progress in trying to identify the butcher, but has hit a roadblock. It's one of those where my logic brain and thinking about this in reality, it's like, yes, I understand why this would be a problem and why there would be a pause on the investigation because of that. But the enjoyment side of me is like, dang it, why couldn't we have learned this? Why couldn't we have figured this out now? I do think Hillier's just doing a really good job with Sam's perspective when it comes to dramatic irony overall. There's this great balance in Sam's perspective where she actually is very smart, but like we, the readers, know more than she does. So yeah, that's been really fun. I'm very much enjoying this book, which is making me so freaking happy. Like, this is what I needed to get out of this mindset I was having last week. So I'm very, very excited to continue reading it. I am reading that one for a dedicated reading vlog, which means when I hit the halfway point, I will have to put it on pause. I don't know what my workday today is really going to look like. So if it's not too terribly busy, I might hit the halfway point in this and then continue. I think I'll continue trying to read A Fire Endless on audio. If I have a busier day, then maybe not. So we'll see.
Good evening, friends. 2 updates, 1 day. Who am I? But it's Monday night. I had a very stressful day overall. So I barely hit the halfway point into the butcher today at work because it was just really freaking crazy. So I was ready to go to my brother's tonight and ready hanging out with my nibblings. We ended up watching Moana 2, which honestly overall pretty cute. I don't think it quite had the same magic as the first one, but it was a good sequel. And then my brother ended up showing me the first episode of Invincible, which has been on my to watch list for forever. So we finally started into that. Reading updates. So like I said, I hit the halfway point to the butcher, had to put that on pause so I could do a video update for it, but I did end up reading a little bit more into A Fire Endless, which is great. This is what I needed. I needed just to get over the hump of picking a book up and reading it. I am now about 90 pages in, and the plot is starting to unfold a little bit more. I'm starting to see the connections of what's going on in the different perspectives, but I'm still not super sucked in. We are just now starting to really utilize a letter writing element, and I do love letters, particularly in romance stories. And also with Rebecca Ross's writing, I do gotta say, her writing is just so good. It's so whimsical. It really does feel like a folk story when you're reading this. She transports you to this isle perfectly, and the 2 separate sides of the isle feel very different but have certain similarities that bring them together. And again, I think Ross does a phenomenal job of showcasing those differences while still making them feel slightly similar. Sister colonies almost. So yeah, at the very least, I did work some more into this. I didn't even have lunch today, so unfortunately I did not read any more of Truth or Beard. And now I am taking the time to film this update because I was filming another one, so I figured why not? But honestly, I'm tired. It's late. I'm gonna go to bed.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I have continued reading into The Butcher. I think I have about 2-ish hours left. I am really liking this, but my God, the romance element is driving me insane. It is so ridiculous the way I just want to yell at these people. Just break up. I get it. It's sunk cost fallacy, but dear God, just cut it off already. Please. I will say, I do think Hillier writes the perspective of the serial perpetrator so well. So well. It is so unsettling being in this person's mind, and the way they rationalize things to themselves, they rationalize things to other people, perspective they have on what they do. I think Hillier is writing that in such an interesting way. And then with the grandson's perspective, kind of watching his struggle throughout the story with his own demons is just, it's the character writing is really good. I really do like it. Like I said, it's Tuesday. I'm at work. I'm about to head in. I really hope today is a lot calmer than yesterday was. And so hopefully I will get to finish out The Butcher because, like I said, I'm really enjoying this. I only have about 2 hours left, so hopefully I'll blast through it in no time. I guess I'll just keep working on A Fire Endless on audio. I'm not gonna lie, I am sort of tempted to try and pick up something else rather than A Fire Endless, just because I'm feeling very meh on that story overall right now. I almost feel like I might enjoy it more if I was reading it physically, which is kind of interesting because I do think the audiobook is fairly well done. Like, the woman who does the voice acting does a good job. Her accent really adds to the atmosphere of the story overall, but there's something that's keeping me from like really loving it, and I'm not quite sure what that is. So
hey y'all, it's Tuesday night. I officially finished out The Butcher, and wow, there was a twist in that book that had my jaw on the freaking floor. Like, I had to pause the audiobook and just do a little lap of my office. It like, just because that was so unexpected. That was crazy. That was wild. This book is very dark. Like, this has some really heavy elements in it. It has some very dark themes. If you need trigger warnings, highly recommend looking at those. Even though the book starts out in a way where it feels like all of this dark stuff is being talked about in a sterile sort of way, where it's like very scientific and more police procedural, as the book continues, Hillier does start to dive more into the gorier, darker bits, because you're actually seeing some of these events unfolding through the characters' perspectives. And like, Hillier writes them well. That does not mean they are less of a punch, because, again, heavy stuff going on here. Still hated the romance angle. I don't think it was necessary. I don't know why she felt the need to shoehorn that in constantly. So unneeded, but really liked that book overall though. And then I actually did go ahead and just continue reading the audiobook of A Fire Endless. And it's so funny that I told y'all this morning, I felt like I would be enjoying this book more if I was reading it physically, because I think it was just the start of this book is very slow. Like, Ross does spend a lot of time setting up the events for what's going to happen in the story, which is a little funny to say because the first book obviously was a lot of setup as well. But now I'm at the halfway point. Like, I'm literally at the halfway point. We're actually getting some good action. We're getting into the thick of things. In the last chapter, there was this great situation that Jack and Adira find themselves in the middle of, and the way they traverse that and handle it was so good. I was like screaming at the audiobook as I was driving home. But then we also have Sidra and Torin kind of more involved and more in the midst of dealing with the folk this time around. And then they also have some of their own relationship drama happening. And like, I just know my emotions are going to go on a roller coaster there in the latter half. I mean, they already kind of have been on a roller coaster because there's things that have happened that have been like, that's so great. And then there's other stuff that has happened where I'm like, are you guys kidding me? So yeah, basically I just needed to keep reading because now I'm loving this. I'm having a really good time. I want to keep reading it. It's going so good. I also did read a little bit more of Truth or Beard on my lunch break today. I am now at chapter 14, 167 pages in, continuing to adore this. And now we're starting to see a little bit more of Dwayne's character. We're getting to see some of his hobbies and stuff he does for fun. And with that, I really like there's a distinction that Jessica makes where even though they grew up together and they do know a lot about each other, it's been so many years and they have grown so much, they don't know everything. And so they're in this weird situation of like already having an established relationship, but now starting a new relationship. It's funny to see like what sort of things are they learning about one another. So freaking cute though, so romantic. Things are getting spicy and I'm very here for that. Plus, we saw some more references to some of the later brothers in the series romances, particularly Billy and Scarlett's, which there is so much buildup around their relationship in this entire series. The fact that Reid literally started that in this first book, and theirs are the 6th and 7th book in the series, that's insane. That is so impressive writing wise. Because you can see she like laid the groundwork for this relationship for so long. I'm loving it. And then now we're also seeing more of some of the other side characters that will start to be important later on, because Reid has written a lot in this world now. Again, I'm so glad I decided to do a reread of this, and I do think it has very much pulled me out of the slump I was in. I did still have a busy day, but it was not nearly as insane as yesterday was, thankfully. And then I managed to get home not too late, and Josh and I were able to go on a walk, which is really nice because all last week was super rainy and gross like it was for most of the US. So we hadn't been able to do that for a while. And then we ended up making dinner and just watched an episode of Shameless. I now unfortunately need to dive into editing. I'll probably get some reading done later tonight though. Friends, happy Thursday. I worked from home yesterday, and even though it wasn't an especially busy day, I still just never took the time to film an update. I'm not sure why. I don't know what happened there, but had a good day work-wise. I did manage to get some editing done. I'm actually pretty ahead in editing right now, and I'm very proud of myself because I really need to start doing that again. And then I went over and had lunch with my grandma. She recently got moved over to a rehab hospital, so that's good. I did read a little bit more of A Fire Endless when I was driving, and I've since been continuing listening to that this morning. I'm still pretty locked in now, really liking this. It just took a bit for me to get there. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, I do think Adira and Jack starting to become my preferred couple in this book. The first book is still definitely Sidra and Torrent, but we're not actually getting to see much of those two together in this book, unfortunately. And off of that, like, it feels as though both of them are very much out of their elements because of the circumstances they're dealing with, which isn't a bad thing. In fact, I actually do like that because it kind of feels like a little bit of a role reversal for the characters. I also didn't really read much of Truth or Beard yesterday either. I did read a little bit this morning when I first got up. I have it with me for lunch, so I will continue reading that. The one other thing I wanted to talk to y'all about is the fact that, oh my god, guys, the Murderbot trailer dropped, and I am so excited. I've watched it so many times already. Oh my gosh, I am so excited for it. Like, I cannot wait. It looks so good. I will admit, I'm still not the biggest fan of the casting of Alexander Skarsgård for Murderbot, but at the very least, the voice of the character feels more true to what I was anticipating. Not necessarily monotone, but like the narration that Murderbot is giving to the story feels more like the Murderbot I know and love. And I was just very worried that Skarsgård wasn't going to be able to match that. Everybody else looks phenomenal in the cast. The one person, and this isn't even really a complaint, it's just like a difference between how I visualize the character and what they're presenting. The actor who plays Pen Lee in my brain, Pen Lee always has a power pony. I think it's because she's a lawyer, but the actress has a shaved head. It's just like I said, Pen Lee has always had a power pony in my mind because she's a badass. Roddy, also phenomenal. The little bit we get from him, already matching this character that I love so much. I'm just so excited, guys. Hello, my friends. So it was a fairly busy day work-wise, but I had a lot of busy work. So nothing too taxing on the brain, meaning I was able to finish out A Fire Endless, and I did really like this. I think Ross stuck the landing very well here, actually. I don't think there's a single element in the story that I was unhappy with how it wrapped up. That's impressive, honestly. She really did make me feel all of the emotions. It was a very big roller coaster at times. And just overall, though it started slow, once I got really invested into the story, even though the pace of the book itself is still on the slower side, it felt like it was a heart-racing read. Like, I was so engaged and so on the edge of my seat many a times because of the issues that our characters keep getting themselves into, but also because of the broader plot that was going on. It felt like the events in this book had higher stakes than the ones in the first book did, which is like terrible to say because I mean, the first book, little girls are going missing, and that's not exactly a light thing. But in this one, it's like the entire fate of the Isle, both sides, is at stake. They're trapped in the middle of this situation because of the folk. So yeah, I just ended up blasting through the rest of this today. So freaking good. Wow, I can really feel the 𝗖cie starting to kick in. I was dragging at the end of work, so as soon as I got home, I drank one of those because after I finish filming this, I'm gonna go make dinner before my book club. So I need to be a little wired. After I finished A Fire Endless, I did go ahead and decide to jump into my nonfiction book for the month because I figured I had the time and why not knock out one of my goals that I have each month. So this is The Feather Thief by Kirk Wallace Johnson, Beauty Obsession and the Natural History Heist of the Century. This is a true crime story in which a young man ends up stealing these very rare feathers, and I don't know if pelts is necessarily an appropriate term for a bird, but I'm gonna go with it, specifically to sell them to fly tires as in the little fake lures that people use whenever they're fishing. Yeah, so this guy was like fanatical about that kind of stuff. Has been since he was a kid. My microphone is dying, so I need to make this a little faster. So he ends up stealing these and selling them to all of these people he's made connections with in this like very niche world so that he can hopefully try to buy himself a super fancy flute because he is also a flautist at Juilliard. No, he's not. Not Juilliard. That's the American one. Whatever the British big name art school is. But he's also studying there and thinks he needs to have like the new improved flute. Like this did start slow, and I will say Wallace gives you so much information dived into when it comes to the history of collecting these specimens, which I'm not gonna lie, not really why I picked this book up. I was here for the heist, but now at this point, I'm actually over halfway in, and so the guy who stole these things, Edwin, has officially been caught, and now he's actually getting put on trial, but he has such a weird reaction to having stolen these that currently his lawyer's thought process is he may have some form of autism and not truly understand like the full implications of what he did based on how he answers certain things. I'm not really sure if I believe that or not. It does have me intrigued. And I will say, now that we're diving into this part, I'm more engaged with it. Like I said, the first half we were talking about the history of these birds and utilization of feathers and collecting them. I wasn't so here for that, but when we got into the heist and the investigating of it, yeah, now you got my attention. I am intrigued. It's weird, it's super niche, but I am liking it. It's pretty good so far. Happy Monday, actually. Ended up having a pretty productive weekend, but also very, very tiring weekend. So because my grandma is going to be moving after everything that's been going on there, Josh and I spent majority of our weekend clearing out my grandma's house and packing everything up, which was really great in the fact that it allowed us some audiobook time whenever we were driving there and back. So we finished out Systems Collapse by Martha Wells. Finally, we had like 5 minutes left in the audiobook, I swear. That's the last in the Murderbot Diaries. And then because of everything that's been coming out for the TV show, we were both so excited for it that we literally just ended up rereading All Systems Red, the first book. Like immediately jumped back into the first book and listened to half of it on Saturday and the next half on Sunday. Yeah, we're so hyped for the TV show. But while we were over there and I was working by myself, I was able to start into the audiobook of 𝗵wn, Ascendency, Chaos Rising. This is by Timothy Vaughn. This is the first of the 𝗵wn series. And I was really excited going into this because 𝗵wn is a character that gets a lot of love, even though he is pretty villainous. And I'm not really sure about what his background is. I just know that he is brilliant. And it's especially impressive that he becomes so high ranked in the the New Republic, given the fact that he is an alien and they are pretty specious, I guess would be the term. Like, majority of the high-ranking officials we see are human, not aliens. So he's actually a member of this ascendency, which I'm still not really sure if it's like a species or if it's more like this society, but it's very based around like different families and their hierarchies. And we alternate timelines between when he is younger, when he's a cadet and still in training for the military, and then when he's an adult, and I believe he's a captain at that point. One thing that is really interesting though is we don't actually see through Thrawn's perspective. We see through multiple people in his life and around him, both in the past timeline and the present. And even with that, you can still feel how smart he is, how brilliant he is, the way he's so conniving and just like pays attention to every little detail and utilizes those to like form a full picture in his brain to fit whatever scenario he needs. Whether he needs it to figure out a person's weakness or whether he needs this in order to like read them like a book, it is very impressive how the author is presenting that through these other characters around him. There's also a young woman we were following who was a Skywalker. Interesting name, I know. These are essentially young girls who have this ability that allow them to almost like travel through hyperspace kind of thing, but it's like in single jumps. And it's not like they volunteer for it. They are conscripted into it due to having the ability. And normally they age out of it by like 13, 14. And so we're seeing this young woman who was a Skywalker and met Thrawn when he was a cadet and had this draw towards him because of the conversation they have, and now she's an adult determined to find Thrawn again and work under him, which she is, and now she's a mentor to the new Skywalker. It's very interesting learning about this society, but as I said, I'm still not 100% sure on like, is the Ascendancy a species or is it just their society? And also, like, why do we not know about them outside of this? Because I have no knowledge of this group before these books. At least I'm fairly sure. There's always a possibility that like something got mentioned in a TV show and it just didn't stick in my brain. But one way or another, I am really liking this. Oh, before I started into that, I officially finished out The Feather Thief, and I did like this. I think the second half of the book, though, was much more interesting because that is where it focused on the actual heist and kind of the events that happened after the fact, and watching the reporter, Wallace Johnson, actually trying to investigate this and kind of a little bit of his personal life and why this kind of became his new obsession. It was very interesting, I will say. It's super niche. Like, this is such a weird area that I've never really just thought to research into, but it was very interesting. Like I said, though, I just wish that majority of the book would have felt more like the second half. I think the first half did get kind of bogged down with all of the research that the author did in order to start investigating this case. It was good. It just like that the start of it is very dry. Like, I understand why my grandma could not get into it because, as I said, it's really dry. It's very focused on the history around feathers. Such a hyper specific area there. I'm glad I finally got around to reading it. I also officially finished out Truth or Beard by Penny Reid. My reread of this, I do still have a bookmark in it, but that is marking where I need to transfer annotations because I read the last little bit on ebook, seeing as I didn't have the physical copy with me at the time, and I just wanted to keep reading it. I wanted to finish it out. I love this family. I love it so much. I still probably wouldn't say this is my favorite of the series. I don't think I'm gonna up my rating for it. I gave this a 4-star when I read it the first time. I still think it is a 4-star, but I still very much enjoyed it. I just feel like there are certain stuff I wish would have been adjusted a little bit. I don't love certain things, namely the like beginning interaction that kind of sets off all of the events in the story. But I did have so much fun picking up on all of the little mentions and references to stuff that'll come up in later novels. I really enjoyed that. I love the dynamic between Dwayne and Jessica. I just love the family itself on the whole too. The family feels in this series so good. So I officially finished reading this and I was like, you know, I think I'm just gonna ride this romance wave I'm in and go ahead and pick up the ebook of After Hours on Milagro Street. So this way I can kind of physically read this as well as have an ebook for whenever I need to pick up a book and just read a few pages. I'm just gonna ride that wave with romance right now because it's working for me. So I'm gonna do that. And this one I had previously started into, and I mean, these two like jump into bed together so quickly. It's genuinely impressive. What's also impressive is how short that time is. So in this, we're following Alex, who is the middle child, and she is stereotypical middle child. She basically ran away to Chicago, became a big name bartender. Some drama happened, and she is now returned home with her tail between her legs, determined to help her sisters take over their grandmother's bar, which is kind of on its last legs. And her grandmother is currently fielding 2 other propositions for the bar, one from this huge company that'll probably just end up bulldozing it for the land, and the other from Jeremiah, our love interest, who's actually hoping to utilize this location as the start of a museum because he's a member of the Historical Society in this small town and wants to focus on the Mexican-American community that is there in order to share about the history of Mexican-Americans who had traveled up into the Midwest in order to work on the railroad and how they've created their own little culture in this area. He mentions his focus is on these specific, there's a term for it, but I can't think of it, but these cultures that are very specific to certain regions, like Creole in Louisiana, for example. So already a very interesting angle to look at the story from an anthropological standpoint, but then the romance. One night stand, but also now enemies to lovers with forced proximity. Yeah, I'm only 4 chapters in and I am so hooked. I am here for every single one of these tropes. I also remember there's a slight paranormal element because they believe that the bar is haunted. So yeah, I'm very excited to continue reading into this one. So I think that is officially wrapping out everything that I've finished and started into over the weekend, but it was just really busy and really exhausting. I'm sorry I didn't officially close this one out on Saturday, but I'm doing it now. And on that note, that is it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me, including a Patreon linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!